Well guys, welcome to 2024. It's time for another gardening season. This is the time of year where I like to start planning. And I'm going to put together a couple of goals this year and share them with you about some things that I'm going to do a little bit differently in the garden this year. All right, number one, we are going to focus more on adding some technology to the garden. This is kind of a fun one for me. I have an internal geek. I'm also a big plant geek, but I also like technology a lot. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing this year is looking for ways that I can reduce some of my workload and automate a few things. In Mississippi in the last summer season, we actually had a pretty strong drought in the area. It was pretty tough to keep up with the watering in our area. So for me this year, watering is a big thing. If I can reduce the amount of time I spend watering while also being pretty conscious about how much water we're using, that's a big thing on my list. So we are adding a watering system to the garden, and I'm going to test out a section, see how this particular product works. If it works really great, I'll do kind of a video on it and whether or not I recommend it. At this point, it's brand new to me, and I have no clue what I'm doing with setting up a watering system. So this will be a new learning for us this season. Also really relevant right now, it's winter months, it's cold, and we have the greenhouse all set up. In the greenhouse, I love to use as much automation as possible. If I could find a way to automate the opening and closing of the door, I'd have that done as well. But this year, what I have found a way to do is to automate the lighting and the heat within the greenhouse without leaving it running all the time. One of my favorite additions to the automation that I've already added is this new BN-Link. It's basically a cord that plugs into the main outlet that I can control on and off with an app. What's incredibly cool about this is that I can actually do it from a distance. In fact, I can do it from anywhere that has some sort of internet service. So I've been, in town and been able to turn on the lights and the heater in the greenhouse. For me as a gardener, it can sometimes be really hard to go away on holidays because you've got all these plants relying on you either for water or for the right temperature. So this is just another way that I can control and protect my plants even though I'm not going to be here if I'm on vacation. And then from a standard day-to-day kind of thing, it's wicked nice when you're laying in bed and you go, oh, I forgot to turn the heater on in the greenhouse, to just roll over to your phone and turn it on. I'll also have a link for it if you're interested in it down below. I only have just got it, so I certainly can't attest to how long it has lasted, but it's brand new and seems to work just dandy. My other goal this year is to practice the Gardening 10. If you haven't heard of the Gardening 10, it's essentially just giving your garden 10 minutes a day. It is so easy to get behind in a garden and get overwhelmed. Weeds can take over, rain can wash out beds, that kind of stuff. And sometimes it seems so incredibly daunting that people give up on it when it kind of gets that far, when you get that far behind. What happens for me when I practice this is just that I come out here to do 10 minutes of gardening. I may not feel like it, I got a bunch of other stuff I need to do, but I say to myself, well, let me just give it 10 minutes. Before I know it, it's feeling pretty good. A little bit of the scatterbrain comes on, I see this that needs to be done, and I start doing that, and I move on to the next thing, and before I know it, it's like 2 or 3 hours I've just spent in the garden. That from having just a habit and a practice of going out for 10 minutes. Some days I'm really not into it, it's not happening, and I just give it the 10 minutes and go back in. But for the most part, it's often more than just 10 minutes, and it's a very good habit. Next one is all about the pollinators. I am 100% still and always very, very passionate about gardening in a way that is good for the pollinators. We have a large amount of our space that's kept wild for nature. I've done is I've continued to develop our garden area, and I've noticed that I really don't have enough pollination zones within the garden. So this season I'm going to grow the number of spots within the garden that have perennial or seeding, self-seeding, or areas that I just seed in general that have pollinator plants. These are native plants. Native plants are the best for native pollinators. This messy bed, for example, this was actually an experiment with some old drawers that we had. We used the drawers to create boxes, and then the drawers wore out. So this year I'm upgrading them, and we're going to redo this section. But in here we had some milkweed, we've got some swamp sunflowers in here. So I'm going to add some more flowers in here that are really good at growing in this type of a condition, and that they fall kind of right in the middle of our garden area. This bed here had echinacea, actually one of my favorite flowers to grow just because they're gorgeous, but they're also fantastic for pollinators. And you can actually see here, there are some remnants of some echinacea plants. There's some seeds that hopefully they will sprout again, even stronger and better than before. One of the beneficial plants that I'd like to plant this year, and I've tried a couple of times, but I've had a really hard time getting it going, but it's called mountain mint. And there's some research out there that actually says mountain mint is very beneficial to native bumblebees. And there's quite a difference between native bumblebees and the non-native. Non-native bumblebees, or well, non-native bees are honeybees. Certainly everybody loves a honeybee, but they're actually not native to North America, or at least not within our continental lifetime. So bumblebees are native, and these are the guys that actually need our help. Honeybees actually are a little bit more harmful for bumblebees. They're not going anywhere, but the honeybees kind of create more competition for nectar, and they bring in new diseases that hit our bumblebees. Anyways, I digress. But bumblebees in general is what I want to plant for. And mountain mint is said to have healing properties for bumblebees, and bumblebees can be very subjective to different diseases, parasites, that kind of thing. So I would love to do anything I can to help our bumblebee population. So anything we can do to help our pollinators, and I don't care what pollinator they are. I mean, ideally, hopefully they are native, because those are the ones that keep the native flora going. But in general, if you're doing good things for native bumblebees or native pollinators, they're going to impact all the pollinators the same. They're all going to likely be beneficial. Not using chemicals, not spraying your trees and plants, not wiping out everything that is natural in your habitat as well. The next one is all about using vegetables as decorative plants in your garden. So this year, that's what I hope to do. I did a little bit last year as well, and I was very, very pleased. I used kale quite often in the garden, and kale offers this great, fantastic kind of explosion look that looks great in a planter. You can use all kinds of vegetables to create really pretty landscapes or annual gardening areas, or filling your own your pots and your baskets. Using your brassicas to corner all of your planters, or you can use them in a way that they could line your planters. Now, I wasn't doing this one in particular for decoration. I'm doing this one for actual growth, but you could easily see how one nice line of it could fill it in and make a beautiful landscape design. Kale is also a really beautiful one to grow in your garden as kind of decorative. This particular one, he's looking a bit holy now, but he was planted in the summer and is still going. This one was actually from a system that we tested for growing in water, and we actually grew him in a styrofoam box. That trial was actually pretty darn successful when you take a look at the incredible root system and the fact that he is still alive from this season, which is actually quite incredible. It was a pretty hot summer, so he survived beautifully. You can also use like the decorative kales. These guys are just beautiful in pots. Like, they just are a stunner. Other garden grown items that you can use in your decorative design could be things like a single stalk of corn in a pot, along with like the overflowing plants like a sweet potato is really quite pretty. You could also use an artichoke. Artichoke provides a really cool kind of texture piece to a pot as well. Carrots lined up in a long kind of at the front, maybe with some kale in behind it for another layer. Another great way to build kind of some dimension in your garden and something to like pretty to look at. Now, sometimes this can be challenging depending on your conditions. Lettuce would be fantastic, but I know in the south, this lettuce doesn't grow in the summer with our summer products, so we can't quite, unless maybe you could find some heat tolerant lettuces, maybe that would work, but lettuces would do a beautiful job of creating, again, you could do a pattern of circle of 3 different types of lettuce, a red one and then a green one and then a fluffier one, or whatever. Using vegetables in your garden decor kind of adds value to your space restrictions, so you can grow more veggies at the same time as you would be normally growing a bunch of annuals in there. And annuals are fun, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do annuals, but it costs you less. You can grow, quite a few different kales from seed, and they'll take up space in your box rather than, buying what is now actually getting quite expensive to get, a little 6-pack of annuals unless you are growing them yourself from seed. And the next goal is all about fast failing. And the reason why I bring this goal into the mix is because I see it so often in forums and different Facebook plant groups where people are like, I just don't have a green thumb. I tried to grow this and I killed it all and I don't do it anymore. That makes me so incredibly sad. I cannot tell you how many plants I've committed plant murder to. So many plants. But I keep growing and I keep learning, and it's usually I only learn 1 or 2 things at a time, and then I keep building up on those learnings. So my challenge for everyone is to adopt a fast fail kind of mentality. It's okay to fail in gardening. You're probably going to do it a lot. Great long-time farmers have crop failures. It happens. It's okay. So what you do, and just like they talk about in a corporate environment, is you fail fast. You get in there, you fail, you move on to the next thing. You try and learn what you can, and you don't adopt something that really is not ever going to work for you, but you do look for ways to make it work in the future for whatever it is it's growing in general. So don't give up, because let's say you try to grow a pineapple in the winter in Mississippi and you leave it outside, and then you just decide, well, I can't grow anything. Well, you can't grow a pineapple in Mississippi outside in the winter. It has to come into a greenhouse. It needs some warmth. So you have to allow yourself the chance to learn before you dismiss all of the growing possibilities. So get in there, try a few things on. Fail at a few things, that's totally okay. Move on quickly. Go on to the next thing. All right, guys, those are the goals for 2024. Now, some of those are recycled goals, but they're, to me, great goals to have. I'm really excited about the technology ones for sure. I love to have some additional automation within our garden. So it'll be an exciting year, and we'll share the videos along the way. Make sure to comment with what some of your goals are down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I might adopt some of them along the way. So happy gardening, you guys. Be friendly, be kind.